Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of bettor, from as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.
Welcome, Wednesday, October 6th, WagerTalk Today, right here on WagerTalk TV, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, each and every day, Monday through Friday. And of course, available 24/7 afterwards, right here on WagerTalk TV. I'm your host, Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez once again. He'll be back later this week. Teddy Covers, my co-host, as always, joins me. And we got a great show today on Wednesday. Teddy Covers, not a lot of football so far this week, but we're going to continue to talk some football. But we do have baseball once again. We've got game one of the only game of the NL wild card going tonight on a Wednesday with Dodgers and Cardinals. We're going to have Arthur DiCesare from Las Vegas from the Westgate to talk about baseball, football, everything else in the world of sports betting. Also, Kevin Dolan, the Irishman. Kevin's going to be here to talk some boxing. Fury, Wilder, huge third fight between those two coming up this weekend. Also, big Alabama-Texas A&M game, maybe one of the biggest games in college football, other than that Penn State-Iowa game. And also Adam Trigger. Adam Trigger is going to be with us. He's new to Wager Talk. He came over from Sports Memo, great capper. Talked 49ers, Cardinals, Boise State, BYU. And then, of course, Teddy, you've got a big game breakdown with the Falcons and Jets. So we have a lot of football today and also some sports book talk, a little boxing as well. But before we get to that, we had AL wildcard last night. Home dog Red Sox cashed. You mentioned them on Monday in your big game breakdown for the first 5, I believe. I had a run line play on them last night, a best bet for my clients, so it was good for us. What did you learn last night on Tuesday, Teddy Covers?
I got to talk about this. I'm so jaded, and people think I was always this way. I'm going to tell a quick Teddy Covers origin story here, and it's going to start with my nephew last night, who was a Red Sox fan, and his dad scored tickets, so he got to go to the game last night, even on a school night. And what an experience. I was texting back and forth with him. It was really a special night for kids who are Red Sox fans, young people. And one of those nights, I would expect he'll remember it forever. And I still remember me, jaded Teddy Covers, back when I was still Ted Savransky. I remember watching Tom Seaver break the all-time record for most consecutive 200 strikeout seasons. I had to look up the date. I knew what year it was 76. Was September 3rd, 1976. Seaver versus Carlton. Steve Carlton, 1-0 game. I was there. True story. And it was a special night. And again, you remember it your lifetime. And then, that was 1976, September 1976, where I get to watch my idol pitcher set an all-time record. The next summer, June 15th, 1977, the very next year, I wake up and Tom Seaver has been traded to the Cincinnati Reds. I didn't know he was feuding with the GM. I didn't know there was a salary cap issue or a salary issue. I didn't know that was even possible that Tom Seaver was going to get traded. I remember the 4 guys he got traded for: Doug Flynn, Pat Zachary, Steve Henderson, Dan Norman. I didn't have to look those up. I still remember them to this day. Dave Kingman, who, Seaver was my favorite pitcher. Dave Kingman was my favorite hitter on the Mets, King Kong. He got traded the same day, June 15th, 1977. It broke my heart. It absolutely broke my heart. It truly did. And it probably set me down the path where I am today, where I genuinely pity fans, the ultimate black heart when it comes to sports betting. So I'm not sure what I learned, but my nephew, Spencer, reminded me of the joy of sports last night, which exists. At least once in a blue moon it does. It exists for him last night. It won't exist after the Red Sox get slapped around by the Rays in the next round of the playoffs. What about you, my friend? What did you learn last night?
I didn't necessarily learn anything last night, but I just learned something in the last 2 or 3 minutes. And I think we're going to save thousands of hours on future therapy for Teddy Covers. We figured it out finally, Teddy. It's funny. As you were saying that, I was trying to think to myself, what was the biggest sporting event I ever saw in person? And my father and I in the 80s through the early 90s, season tickets to the Washington Redskins. I went to a handful of Oriole games in the Northern Virginia area, but we, of course, didn't have the Nationals. I would have loved to have had them back in the day. But I think probably the coolest moment for me was the 1987 NFC Championship game when the Redskins beat the Vikings to get to Super Bowl 22. They eventually smoked the Broncos. We always had it down to a strategy. We'd get out there, beat the traffic a little bit. We'd walk down from the second level, watch the end of the fourth quarter on the way out. We had it down. Redskins were winning. They might have been close, like 17-10, but they were winning. We're heading down the ramp, and my dad was buddies with Wayne Sevier, the special teams coach, who was up in the box. And he's coming down the ramp as we're going down the ramp, and they're high-fiving each other, the three special team coaches, and they recognized us, and that was pretty cool. And it's funny you bring that up because, as you know, I don't root for Washington anymore. I don't really root for any teams, maybe a teeny bit for William and Mary, in basketball or football, 1AA program. And I know you feel kind of the same way with Michigan. I know you're kind of jaded with Michigan as well, your alma mater. And so, yeah, I think I do like to see moments like this. And it's also hard for me to get behind these sports teams now. Like you said, the way players are just traded left and right. Those Redskin teams in the 80s and 90s, I can name every player on every side of the ball. They stayed there for the majority of their career. Same with the Orioles. I was a huge Cal Ripken guy, Eddie Murray. They were there. Cal Ripken never left. So, yeah, it's different now. So glad to hear you kind of think like I do, but you do appreciate moments in the playoffs when the games count. But it's definitely not the same. And I'm feeling like an old man, too, so we got to move on. But, yeah, Teddy, I mean, was that the biggest sporting event you've ever been to as far as memories as Tom Seaver?
As a kid, sure. I mean, that was a huge game. And it was a huge event, the all-time records. And Tom Seaver is my idol. I was a pitcher. I wanted to be Tom Seaver, But the day he got traded, I cried. I flat out cried. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I feel like I don't know that I've ever been the same person since then. The black-heartedness began that day, Steve Merrill, and it continues today. And hence, I've evolved into a sports betting career where I could care less what team wins or loses unless I have a bet on or against them.
And Teddy, I was going to say too, I think as handicappers, that's probably not a bad thing. It's you have to distance yourself as a fan versus a bettor. And it's been very easy for me not to root for the Redskins because they've been terrible for the last 20 plus years since Snyder took over. But also, it's probably not a bad thing as a sports bettor. Hey, let's bring in Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com, when we have Adam here. And Adam, quickly, I know you're a New York guy, I believe. Same thing for you. Do you have any teams you still root for, or are you just kind of neutral nowadays when it comes to the world of sports?
I've got one team that I am still a diehard fan of, and that is the Siena College Saints. So college basketball only. That's where I went to college. And that's really the one thing. Like, I agree with Teddy. If I don't have a bet on it, I could really care less whether who wins or loses. But Siena's my one sort of soft spot. That's where I went to college, and I'll always be a Siena fan. In the pro sports, I really don't have a team. It's really whoever I bet on that day.
Yeah, and it's easy for me too, Adam. Like I said earlier, for me, it's kind of my alma mater as well. It's 1AA football, so we're never really betting on that. And then basketball, very handful of times we'll have a play even in that conference, the CAA conference, for me with William and Mary. But college sports is kind of the one sport you can kind of root for the kids still. 18, 19-year-olds, you get to know them a little bit, and they're decent kids, decent players. But these pro guys, take them and leave them, guys. I don't have a lot of love lost for any of these pros. Hey, Adam, I know you're a fantastic capper, football, basketball. We'll talk about here in a few weeks. NBA starting. But let's look first at a football game for this weekend. I know we have some baseball tonight, but once again, football right around the corner again this weekend. Let's start with the NFL. We've got some people yesterday say we wanted more NFL talk on the show. I'm thinking, well, we've had a lot of damn NFL talk this week, but we've got some more here with the 49ers and Cardinals NFC West battle. We have a huge game tomorrow night on Thursday between the Seahawks and Rams. But this is the other two NFC West teams in playoff contention. How are you looking at this one against the undefeated Cardinals? Are they for real? And 49ers, can they get it done?
So I don't know that I'm going to make an argument against the Cardinals being for real, but I definitely am looking to bet on the 49ers here. The first thing I want to know is who the quarterback's going to be, because if it is Trey Lance, then I'm even more inclined to make a play on San Francisco with the points. So one thing I noticed about the Cardinals, 4-0 start, but the teams that they've played, they've all had a pretty sort of traditional quarterback. It's been Tannehill, Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, and Matt Stafford so far. So I think Lance and his mobility, granted he's raw, he's probably going to make some mistakes, kind of like he did in the second half against the Seahawks. I just think his mobility and sort of upside, could be something that plays here where, Arizona might not be quite ready for that. I also like the spot for San Francisco. back-to-back weeks where they've now lost to the Packers and the Seahawks. That Packers game was a pretty devastating loss for them, losing it in the final seconds. And then last week losing to the Seahawks. So they're coming in the desperation spot here, whereas Arizona just came off of the win of their season, what very well could be the win of their season, just blowing out the Rams the way they did. So I definitely like the spot here for San Francisco. We always go back to the look ahead line, and we're definitely getting line value because the line on this prior to this week, I want to say, was Cardinals -2. So now you're looking at the 49ers getting 5.5. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. If he's the one that's going, I may sit this out. But with Trey Lance, I think he provides a big enough wild card, and I'm always willing to bet. I'm always willing to bet on Kyle Shanahan, who has shown he can win games with guys like Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. So I think if he knows Lance is going to be the guy, and he's got a week to game plan here. You also have the Cardinals' offensive line a little banged up. That seems like a lot of points. It's a really sort of desperate spot for the 49ers. I think they could probably hang around and get the cover.
So here's the basic question that we have to ask about San Francisco right now, Adam. The 49ers in the Kyle Shanahan era had one Super Bowl season. Every other year, they've been a losing team, and a bad losing team. Shanahan with a losing record as a head coach. San Fran with 2 wins over weaklings early in the season that now maybe don't look quite so impressive. San Fran with injuries on both sides of the football, huge injuries. Trent Williams is not a minor injury. We're talking about maybe the best road grader tackle in football. They got injuries in the secondary. They're, had injuries all last year. So I guess the question I have to ask you, in theory, it's a 49ers spot, but are the 49ers good enough to do it? Is this team any good?
So I think what I'm going to have to convince myself is that the 49ers pass rush can be disruptive enough against what's kind of a banged up Cardinals offensive line to sort of offset their injuries in the secondary. That's, I think, going to be the big difference here, because if Kyler Murray has time to throw, he's going to pick this 49ers secondary apart. If Nick Bosa and the 49ers pass rush can really disrupt things, I think that would give the 49ers a chance to hang around here. And then you're also banking a little bit, in my opinion, on the Cardinals just coming out flat after such a big win over the Rams. So again, I haven't bet it yet, but the way I'm looking here is 49ers. And I think if I knew Trey Lance was going to start, for sure, I would. It's possible I'll end up getting to the window with San Francisco.
Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com, and the Cardinals. Yeah, they're sandwiched in between that big Rams game, and they're at Cleveland next week. Who would have thought the Browns could be a look-ahead spot, a non-conference game? But Browns playing excellent football as well. Tough schedule for the Cardinals. Everyone in that NFC West. Let's look at some college football, though. This game we have not talked about this week here on the show. It's a good one, 3:30 in afternoon, Eastern time, Saturday afternoon. Boise State at BYU. BYU lost a ton in the offseason after that great year last year. Very young. I think like 3 returning starters on O, maybe 5 on D. Yet they're off to a perfect 5-0 straight-up start. Getting it done offensively, not quite at the level they did last year, but they're running the ball well, 5 yards per carry. Boise, meanwhile, this is a Boise team that always dominated as a mid-major. Terrible rushing attack, Adam. That's what jumped out at me in this matchup. 2.1 yards per rush versus 5. I was curious to see what your thoughts are on that and just this matchup in general, Boise State at BYU on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much willing to die on this hill at this point. BYU is not the 10th best team in the country, and I really think they're going to be a fade going forward. Now, I missed with Utah State last week, but I'm certain if Utah State's quarterback, his name's escaping me right now, but if he didn't get hurt toward the end, Utah State probably goes down the field and backdoors that spread, probably loses by 7 and covers the number. What I did notice in that Utah State BYU game last week was Utah State's offense is not great, but they pretty much threw the ball all over BYU. I think they passed for, I want to say 310 yards. It was over 300 yards. And as you said, Boise State does not run the ball well, but they definitely have a formidable passing attack. And the issue for Boise hasn't been scoring points. It's been getting stops. BYU, their offense, as you said, not as good as last year. And I just think that this team has been very fortunate so far. They get the upset over Utah. They scored 26 points in that game. Charlie Brewer plays terrible. He's no longer even with the Utah program. They upset Arizona State despite getting outgained by about 80 yards. They were very pedestrian after the first quarter against South Florida, and they win by 8 as a 23.5-point favorite. And then, as I said last week, I really think Utah State probably comes back on that last drive had they not lost their quarterback, because they were moving the ball through the air with no problem, and probably covers that number. So this line has moved. It's now up to BYU -6, and I just think that that's a massively inflated number. This is a huge game for Boise State after losing last week and kind of getting embarrassed on their home field by Nevada. Boise State can move the ball, and 2 years ago, I don't know if it's going to. And the other thing is, BYU hasn't even named a quarterback yet. Baylor Romney was the quarterback that upset BYU or upset Boise State when they were 14th in the country 2 years ago. It could be him. It could be Jaron Hall, who's been battling rib injuries, but it also could be Jacob Conover, who came into the game last week. It was terrible against Utah State. So to me, this is just too many points. I think, Boise has their issues, but they have 3 losses, all to pretty good teams. They lost by 1 point to Oklahoma State, who's number 12 in the country. The other 2 losses, UCF and Nevada, both, formidable opponents. I just think Boise State's getting way too many points here, and I'm going to take the points with the Broncos.
So I'm interested in something you said there, because I was thinking the exact opposite. You were saying that Boise's problem is is on the defensive side of the football, and they can score points against anyone. And I've watched the Broncos now 3 times, and I watched UCF shut them down. I watched they struggle against Utah State, shut out in the second half against Oklahoma State. That offense has been hit or miss, and more miss than hit. Nevada was able to contain them for extended stretches last week. But defensively, they've been fine for stretches, and then other games they get ripped apart. I don't know that Boise's good on either side of the football. They're 2-3 on the season. They're a team that is clearly in the midst of a disappointing campaign and a first-year head coach. Is this a program that you're confident is going to be at the same level right now, or is Boise maybe taking a step or 2 back? Whereas the BYU program, what are they, 21-3, the last 24 ball games? BYU, that program's not declining as we speak.
Oh, there's no question Boise's taking a step back as a program. I was on Nevada last week. I fully expected Nevada to move the ball the way they did. And like you said, the Boise defense that was one of the examples of Boise defense not being very good, giving up 41 points to Nevada. I don't think BYU's offense is as good as Nevada's. I'm going back to just BYU's just been very fortunate, in my opinion, this year. So I think this is going to be a step down from what they saw last week from out of Nevada. Carson Strong, NFL quarterback, that's probably going to be a very high draft pick. I think that Boise offense will actually be a step down, and it could be even worse if it ends up being their third string quarterback that goes in this game. You're right. Boise State has definitely been hit or miss offensively, but I look at the game last week, and Utah State was able to move the ball through the air, no problem. South Florida, who's horrendous, actually moved the ball on BYU without much issue in that game. Granted, it was already after BYU sort of had a comfortable lead. I think Boise's going to bounce back a little bit here. This is a 3:30 game on Saturday, as you said. It's on ABC, so it's a huge game, big national spotlight. Which Boise and BYU, while they're big names, they don't always end up in that 3:30 Saturday, ABC or CBS time slot. So I just think it's a really big game for Boise. After getting embarrassed last week, their season is probably over, sort of in terms of what they usually expect to get out of the season. So I think this game is going to be a really big deal. And again, I just think that the line has drifted up to a point where there's a lot of value getting 6 points with Boise State.
Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com, and there are several 5.5 still showing, but like you said, this line has gone to 6 in many spots. So if you like Boise State, folks, make sure you get that +6.
Just to be clear, the money's coming on BYU because they're expecting the quarterback to play for the Cougs.
Correct.
Oh, Hill, or Hall, yep.
Yeah, we saw it as low as 3 in some books a couple days ago. Yeah. So it's definite adjustment based on that, Teddy. Almost a full field goal, it's looking like.
Yeah.
Boise State +6 should be readily available after this show, as it's already showing in many spots offshore and in the U.S. Adam, you're on a 22-10 all sports run. That's almost 70%, 69%. We'll get to 70 this weekend.
I got to update that. That it's actually 24-11
stale?
now. That was as of a day ago or two. I actually have to update that, but it's 24-11. I had a winner this morning in Korean baseball, which has still been awesome for me. So yeah, so 24-11 run. It's been really good month. It's been a really good month for me, and those types of things. There's always going to be regression at some point, but you try to just kind of ride it out as long as it'll go. So I'm hoping to have another strong weekend this weekend.
Once again, Adam does cover Korean baseball, CBO. So don't forget it's something else you can add to your betting portfolio. Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. Adam, great to see you. Thanks for joining us today on Wednesday. Great luck this weekend. And Teddy, we got a London game around the corner this Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. You're going to break it down here in about 20 seconds. Big game breakdown. Jets, Falcons, NFL London style right after the break.
Sign up for the free WagerTalk text club to gain access to free plays and exclusive discounts. Just text WagerTalk to 33222 to sign up and get a $10 coupon to use on WagerTalk.com.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's talk about the New York Jets and the Atlanta Falcons. Why is this game interesting? Because it's a single event game that starts at 6:30 in the morning Pacific time, and it's being played in London. So it's certainly a way to wake up and win on Sunday with this contest. Speaking of wake up and win, man, I've been in real good form. 80% across sports here in the month of October. 73% dating back to mid-September. Better than 60% for the full season. Better than 62% for the full season. Both NFL and college football. And the baseball, I'm riding an 83% heater after another winner yesterday. So you check out all the packages right now at WagerTalk and or sportsmemo.com. Let's talk Falcons and Jets. And look, when we're talking about totals in the NFL, and you're looking at overs, you need touchdowns, not field goals. You need big play opportunities, not grinded out drives. And you need as many opportunities as possible. Pace really helps. So when we look at the Jets and the Falcons, let's see. On the one side, Zach Wilson's taking downfield shots. 7 different Jets receivers have a catch of longer than 25 yards. He's got 15 completions of 20 plus, and Atlanta's defense is ripe for the picking when it comes to chucking downfield. I expect Zach Wilson and the Jets to connect on a handful of big play opportunities in this ball game. The other side of the equation, Matt Ryan, he looks real comfortable. 6 touchdowns without an interception over the last 2 games, a 68% completion rate over the full season. Falcons hung 30 last week. They're live to do it again here. There were questions about the stadium. The Tottenham Hotspur, supposedly the best field conditions in the UK in case of bad weather. All the sharp money's been coming on the over early in the week in this one, and for good reason. Look for the Jets and Falcons to be a high-scoring affair, over 46. And there's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Thank you, Teddy. Covers big game breakdown, London style. That's Jets Falcons. And once again, that's Teddy said. That's an early kickoff. Don't miss it. 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Pacific, Sunday morning, NFL style. And speaking of overseas, isn't it appropriate that we have Kevin Dolan on next? We're talking England there. We're going to bring on the Irishman, Kevin Dolan. And Kevin, I haven't gotten to talk to you since the NBA shows ended. Just a few weeks away from that, my man. NBA season right around the corner this month. But you've been busy at work in the meantime. And one thing I love is that you cover boxing. And we've got a big one this weekend, to say the least. The third meeting between Fury and Wilder. If it did, December 18, I think, was the first time they met. It's the third fight and 2-year hiatus. Look, how do you see this third one playing out? This is probably one of the better heavyweight rivalries we've seen. First one was a draw. Fury got the stoppage in the second one. How do you see this third fight going? I'll throw it to you. I think right now Wilder's about a plus 240 dog. Fury's minus 300. Any value in this fight on Saturday night?
Yeah, to be fair, Steve, there's not too often we see trilogy fights, these days. But, in terms of a selection, it's hard for me to look beyond a repeat of what we saw in that second fight. You mentioned the draw in that first fight at the top of the question. That was a completely out of shape Fury. 3 fights back after that 3-year layoff that he had. He absolutely ballooned up on weight after the Klitschko win as well in the interim. And, he still completely outboxed Wilder for the most part in that fight. He hit the canvas twice. But even with that, I thought the draw was harsh on Fury in that first fight. I thought he won the fight by a few rounds. And in the rematch, at least, he figured out the puzzle. Wilder's got effectively one punch in that entire arsenal. That's it, that huge detonator straight right hand of his. But, prior to that, because that right hand was so devastating, fighters literally, were crumpling to the ground off one shot. So opponents, usually more times often than not, were looking to back off Wilder, try and outbox him, keep the fight at range. But, Fury figured it out. Fury figured out that puzzle in that second fight. How do you nullify a straight right hand? Don't let him get it straight. If you go back and watch the start of the second fight, Fury absolutely launches himself at Wilder. He runs straight across the ring in the opening exchange. He took Wilder by complete surprise. Crowded that pocket. He was smothering his shots, putting him off balance, kind of cuffing him around the ring with big shots. And the few times Wilder was able to get that right hand shot off, Fury simply rolled with it, timed it to such a degree now where, he simply moved out of range. And, since that second fight, look, Wilder's obviously changed trainers. He's now with Malik Scott, a former opponent of his. And after that second defeat, Wilder kind of went into absolute meltdown. He said his trainer, Mark Breland, spiked his water. These are some pretty serious accusations to be coming out with, in fairness. He also said his ring walk outfit was too heavy, that it affected his legs, that Fury had loaded his gloves. Some more serious accusations with weights prior to the fight. He also said Fury had placed a gypsy curse on him, so people were wondering if there was a mental aspect of this. But, he was pretty much saying everything bar giving Fury kind of credit for the win. And, in fairness, for this fight, Wilder does look in phenomenal shape. Rumours from his camp by sparring partners and other people have said that he's looking to, take it back to basics in this fight. He spent the last 18 months working on fundamentals, working on that jab, not just trying to rely on that devastating power to get him out of tight spots. But, Deontay Wilder will be 36 years old at the end of this month. I just don't see personally, what 18 months can do in preparation against a guy as good as Fury. Yes, 18 months gives you enough time to work on some things, iron out some things out, and Wilder's already shown he has a pretty decent jab going into that Bermane-Stavern fight, the first one. But, 18 months at the age of almost 36, when you're effectively looking to start from scratch all over again, learning boxing from the off, fundamental-wise, I just don't see it. So, pretty much like we saw against Anthony Joshua 2 weeks ago, I hope Deontay Wilder doesn't automatically think he's some kind of elite level technician now because of what he's learned in training camp over the last 18 months. That's not how this works. We saw with Joshua taking on Alexander Usyk 2 weeks ago that there's levels to this game. That kind of ring craft takes absolutely, years to master. Junior championships, amateur championships, Olympics and so on. And if Wilder does try and go in there to outbox Fury on Saturday night, just like Joshua attempted to do against Usyk 2 weeks ago, he's going to get undressed, in my opinion, and likely in pretty devastating fashion as well. In my opinion, Wilder's best bet heading into this fight is to work on what got him to this point in his career. That absolutely phenomenal right hand of his. Look to refine that, kind of refine that power, work on ways of disguising that shot. That's his money punch. Try and not telegraph it as much. Fury can read him now and, try and land something clean that Fury doesn't see coming. It is a big ask, obviously, but he almost took him out in that first fight, let's not forget. And if he is patient in there, this time around, concedes ground to Fury. Look, don't look to contest that centre of the ring against Fury. He's too big, he's too skilled. Just kind of sit back, wait for your chance, just like we saw in the Lewis Ortiz rematch. One clean punch. Doesn't matter if he's losing the rest of the fight. If that lands, that's like the old Deontay Wilder needs to close the show. But look, for me, I just don't see it happening. Fury looks so much sharper to me right now from how he looked in that first fight. I think there's an absolutely Grand Canyon type of gulf in boxing ability here as well between these two fighters. I don't think Fury gets enough credit for how good he actually is in there. So for me, I think Fury wins by KO again. That's going off at minus 120. I like that. I think Fury's learned his lesson from that first fight about trying to outbox Wilder from range. I think he looked to go straight back to what worked for him in that second fight. Look to close the distance on Wilder from the get-go, leading him, use that advantage in size and weight he has against him as well on the inside, keep him off balance with those big shots. And, as long as he doesn't get too reckless in there, I don't see this fight making it to the championship round. So, yeah, for me in this fight, Fury by KO minus 120, in what I see as a repeat of the second fight.
Kevin Dolan's been on a pretty good run with his 5% plays dating back to April. How about 32-12? Close to 73% on all 5% plays since April, plus 84.8 units during that span. You can use his promo code BOXING1 to get his Fury Wilder 9-pack for only a single $1. $1 this weekend. 9 plays. Use that promo code BOXING1 to get Kevin's selections. Kevin, let's switch real quick over to college football and talk about one of the marquee matchups for the weekend. That's Alabama and Texas A&M. As usual, the Crimson Tide significant favorites in this ballgame, but it's a low total for an Alabama game, sitting in the 51 range. What are we going to do with Alabama versus Texas A&M?
Yeah, I'll keep this one quick, Teddy. I took Texas A&M getting 17.5 at home against Alabama yesterday. This number's been all over the shop. Opened up 15.5 over here in Europe. Went all the way to 18 before some buyback came in. I'm one of those people on the buyback. I think this is too big of a number. A&M have the 5th best scoring defense in the country right now. They're giving up just 12.6 points per game, averaging the 11th best passing defense of 5.7 yards per pass attempt through the air, 4.9 at home. They own the nation's 6th best opponent red zone scoring percentage as well. So, this narrative, Alabama's simply going to show up and steamroll this A&M team. I just don't see it personally. Bryce Young is an excellent quarterback, no doubt, but against high-level defenses, he has been limited. He puts his options on the coverage, 29 yards longest pass against Ole Miss last week, 29 longest pass against Florida as well, 29 yards. And was held to less than 250 yards in both of those games. So I think A&M can hang tough here. And, as you mentioned about the under, I also like that because of, how good Texas A&M have been on defense. I think because they're coming off 2 straight losses, we're getting decent value on them here. Stock's arguably never been lower than it is right now after losing to Mississippi State outright as touchdown home favorites last week. So, yeah, for me, I made this game 13. I think 17.5, especially in a night game at Kyle Field. It's got to be a play for me on the Aggies to show up here and cover the spread against Alabama.
Yeah, and Kevin, the look-ahead line last week, a bettable line before Bama played was 14.5, and now it's 17.5, 18. So that was very close to what your power ratings were, and obviously Bama looking so good moved this higher, to say the least, over a key number of 17. So once again, Kevin saying there's a little bit of value maybe with A&M, a team that was considered top 5 maybe coming into the season. It's definitely gotten off to a slow start. Kevin, once again, you've got a big 5% college football play going this weekend at WagerTalk.com on a mere 32-12, 72.5% run on 5%ers. You got your college football one this Saturday. And then once again, you heard his boxing expertise. Get his 9-pack, all 9 bets for Fury Wilder 3 for $1. I can't even do the math. It's like 12 cents a pick. Boxing 1, BOXING 1, the number 1. Boxing 1. Get you all 9 picks for $1. Hey, Kevin, great to see you. We will talk again soon in a couple of weeks with the NBA season starting, my man. Kevin Dolan, WagerTalk.com. Once again, Boxing 1, all 9 picks for $1 in that huge Fury Wilder Part 3. Teddy, huge show today. We're going to switch right over back to Vegas now with Arthur DiCesare, Westgate Superbook. And Arthur, congratulations on the move. I had not gotten to speak with you personally since it happened last month, so it's great to see you, Art. And love your Twitter handle. It's still one of the best, ArtDice21. I mean, it doesn't get much better than ArtDice21 at Twitter. Arthur, welcome to the show. I'll ask you real quick before Teddy throws probably some football and baseball. Your thoughts on this Fury Wilder fight? Is it going to be a big one for the book this weekend, or is it going to kind of get lost in the shuffle maybe, with so much football going on and baseball playoffs?
Yes, Steve, I appreciate, the kind words. Thank you so much. Listen, I'm still trying to get over Phil Nevin sending Aaron Judge home last night. So, I'm still reeling here as a Yankee fan. I just, I don't know, man. I'm at a loss for words. But, one of these big fights, we'll always get action on big fights. Obviously, a lot going on this weekend. playoffs, NBA preseason, NHL preseason, all the football, but a big trilogy like Wilder and Fury, we will definitely get action on. So it will not get lost in the shuffle. I even had people coming to the counter last night making bets on it. So people are well aware of the fight, and we will have some significant action on the fight for sure.
So there's a thought process that around this time of year, as the hockey season starts, as the basketball season starts, as we have baseball playoffs and single event things like the fights and everything else, along with football, which takes more volume than than any other sport. But with all of these different events going on, there's a school of thought that this is the time of year, October and into November, when the books put up the weakest numbers, where there's vulnerability from the sports books, where some of these lines that if the games were played in April or in July, there'd be a better number, a better opening number from the sports books on this. Have you found that in your career that, that there's just weaker numbers at this time of year because there are so many sports going on? Or is that one of those urban legends like alligators in the sewer that isn't quite so real?
Yeah, Teddy, I have heard that in the past. I do think, I think it depends on what shop you're going to. Also, too, this is the best time of the year for sports betting. This is where we have everything, and obviously once we hit November, we'll throw college basketball into the mix. So, yeah, I think that depends on what shop, the better shops, like a shop I'm working at, Westgate, we do our best. So, we're always going to be competitive and, we're not going to just, we have too much going on. No, we have a great team and we're going to put up the lines that need to be put up. So I personally don't think that is real. I think that is a little bit of an urban legend.
And Art, I'm going to ask you something else that's unique to the Westgate. And one of the things I love about the Westgate, and a lot of us here at WagerTalk.com, we anxiously await the look-ahead lines, especially for the NFL each week. What's some of the thought process behind that? Very few books do that. You are one that will take a stand, put up a number before the market does. Do you get much action on those look-aheads? It's mainly the NFL. I know occasionally you'll do it for some college football big games. Just some quick thoughts on that, the look-ahead numbers, maybe explain that to the viewers, the process that goes behind it. What we're talking about, viewers, is that next week's NFL games are up now, even before this week's are played. And obviously those are bettable lines.
Yeah, exactly, Steve. We always have, it's week 5 right now, but we also have week 6. When it's week 6, we'll have week 7. So we always have a week ahead. Our thought process is, and, the guys in our room, guys like Ed Salmons, Jeff Sherman, they're the best at what they do. And they believe in putting out a line, and allowing people to come in and, make type of bets. Now, listen, it's always going to be limited as far as, the action we'll take on look-ahead lines. But, when you're basically the only people who are offering things like that, it's always nice to have something different. And, do we get a ton of action on it? I wouldn't say a ton, but we definitely have some of the sharper guys who like to come in and see something or see a position they like or a number they like and jump in on it. So it's just unique to us and it's unique to the business that, we're one of the only ones, if not the only ones who do it. So we love that we do it and we're proud that we do it. And obviously, people like you guys and people in the business talk about it. So it's a really good business model for us. So we're all about it.
Yeah, I referenced the Westgate look-ahead lines every single week on the opening line report right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern, every Monday on this very channel. Art, we'll get back to football in just a minute, but I want to ask you about what's going on in MLB. My apologies for Yankee fans last night. It certainly wasn't any joy watching Judge get thrown out by 40 feet. No, it wasn't that much, obviously, but nonetheless, let's talk about today's game. We have what was the hottest team in baseball in St. Louis versus the favorite to win the World Series, but they can get eliminated in a single game tonight. Talk about the action for the Dodgers and the Cardinals. What are you seeing? Side, total, future book for these two teams?
Yeah, it's incredible. What a sport, baseball. The Dodgers are going to win, 104, 105 games, and they could be out tonight. So pretty crazy. But, it's been interesting. It's been basically 3-1 ticket count on the Cardinals, but the money's been on the Dodgers. So, we had the line 210. It's now minus 240 Dodgers. So even though we've seen a lot of smaller tickets taking the underdog with the Cardinals taking a chance, the bigger money has come in on the Dodgers, so the line has moved. We will be obviously rooting for the Cardinals. Anytime it's the Dodgers, we're basically rooting against the Dodgers because the Dodgers take so much money anyway. So yeah, very interesting. It's a one-game shot. I mean, they should have the advantage with Scherzer, but obviously I've seen all the numbers with Wainwright against the Dodgers. He's been phenomenal against the Dodgers in his career, so it will be a very interesting thing. I'm sure we'll have a ton of Dodger fans in the book. Total really hasn't been much to speak of. It's basically we're sitting on, all the money line liability, so we will be rooting for the Cardinals tonight for sure.
Well, I'm seeing that the first half total, the first 5 innings, was 4 last night, and now it's 3.5. And I know there's awkward shadows at Dodger Stadium with that early start time. Has the under money really flowed for the first 5 for the full game? Or you're saying it hasn't been that great in terms of a money flow over at the West Coast?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like that's crazy significant. You are right with that first 5 total getting moved. I think that has a lot to do with the pitching. You're probably right. It's got a lot to do with the shadows as well. People probably looked last night and saw, that game last night was 3-0. It was a 4 as well. The pitching matchup is great. Obviously, playoff baseball usually is played a little bit tighter. Usually, you're not going to see these 8-6 games. You usually see 4-2 games. So, people probably want to take that type of position. But I don't know. When it comes to the total, it's not that we take crazy, we don't have crazy liability usually on totals unless it's something whacked out. But, yeah, it's nothing crazy to speak of.
And once again, Arthur DiCesare at ArtDice21 on Twitter. Great Twitter follower. A great Twitter follow. He's a good follower also. But ArtDice21 on Twitter at the Westgate Superbook. And I know we want to get to some actionable info in football. When Prez is here, he'd be asking for actionable info. I'll let Teddy ask you that. I just want to close out on baseball real quick. We've heard rumblings that some books around town have some liability on the Giants, who are not expected to be as good as they were this year. The Giants end up with 107 wins. Dodgers, 1 game back, 106 wins. As Teddy said, they're in a one-and-done scenario, only about a 67% chance mathematically of advancing past tonight. Yes, I know you probably are heavy on the Dodgers tonight. You'd like to see the Cardinals pull the upset, but would your book or other books you think kind of like the Dodgers to survive to maybe get the Giants out of there in the next round of that 5-game series coming up? Any teams that you have liability on here overall in the playoffs, and what kind of action will you guys get from the public here? I know baseball isn't a heavy bet sport during the summer, but does the public really come out and start playing these playoff games?
Yeah, Steve, as far as, the futures go, you touched on it, the Giants, basically at the beginning of the year, depending on when you got them, they could have been, 80-1, 75-1, 50-1. Nobody saw this coming from the Giants, best record in the league, being the number 1 seed. So, yeah, there's obviously going to be some liability on the Giants. The Dodgers, obviously, they're going to take a ton of tickets, but, basically when they open as a 2-1 favorite, it's nothing crazy, so I think Giants winning the World Series would obviously be the worst case scenario for any sports book, especially ours. And yeah, as far as, towards the end of the season, I know we, Teddy and I had touched on this, before. The last month of the season gets overshadowed by obviously football starting and everything. But once playoffs come, a lot of times, yesterday, today, you're basically just having playoff games that are standing alone. So playoff games are going to get action when you get the big teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers. Even when the Giants get in the mix because of the California feel, we'll definitely get plenty of good action on these baseball games. So the public definitely comes out and bets these playoff games. And the baseball bettors who have bet the season all year, I keep always saying this, they continue and stick with baseball. So you'll have the baseball guys who've done it all year, and then the public will start to jump in now because they're like, oh, it's playoff baseball. They probably took the last month, maybe even last 2 months of the season off, but they'll hop back in for the playoffs for sure.
We've got just a few moments left here with Arthur DiCesare, race and sports supervisor over at the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. Follow him on Twitter at ArtDice21. And, of course, you can listen to him on my Cover It with Teddy Covers show on SiriusXM Channel 204, the Sports Grid Radio Network, this weekend. Let's shift our focus to NFL for a few moments. For the Thursday night game, it looks like we've seen nothing but LA Rams money. Is that a significant liability for you? And is there anything else on the NFL card that's standing out in terms of early week play from the Wise Guy?
Absolutely, Teddy. You have to touch on the Thursday night game. It's a good game, big divisional game. We're basically 8-1, 9-1 ticket count on the Rams. Basically, game open as a pick 'em, sitting 2.5 now. So a lot of Ram liability. It's just there's no way around it. The Rams have looked like a Super Bowl team, like we all thought they would. Hey, Seattle had a really good win last week, so this is going to be a very big game, big divisional game. But yeah, public sharps, everyone seems to be on the Rams, so we'll be rooting for Seattle, come tomorrow, no doubt about it. Couple of games to touch on in the NFL. Saints at Washington was a pick, now 2. We've seen some significant Saint money come in. So, I don't know. Saints seem to me to be a little overvalued. Washington maybe figured it out last week, got a good win on the road. They pulled it out. So, I don't know. People are still waiting for that defense to step up. So, we'll be rooting for Washington. And then you obviously got to touch on the Sunday night game. The Sunday night game is the best game of the week. AFC Championship game rematch, probably an AFC Championship game preview for this year. Obviously, Buffalo, Kansas City. Numbers been jumping around. We've actually taken a lot more ticket count on the Bills, basically 4-1, 5-1. We're sitting at 2.5 yesterday. We've gone back to 3. So Kansas City still -3. But right now, more of a liability on Buffalo. Obviously, a long way to go to Sunday night. Be interesting to see, kind of where people side on that, because you can make a case for both teams. So, yeah, I would say right now, biggest liabilities are Saints and Rams. And then, Sunday night game, I'd say right now Bills, but, by kickoff, we'll probably get some two-way action on it.
Since in my Fade the Public NFL video each week here on Wager Talk TV, Arthur, Rams have been a very public play the majority of the week so far this season. So not a surprise that you all have some liability there. I doubt that'll change. And I like Art making a bold call, Teddy. The last place Kansas City Chiefs will be in the AFC Championship game, he just said. It's a bold call. You heard it here first on Wager Talk TV. Hey, we didn't have much time for college football today, but shoot Art questions at ArtDice21 on Twitter. Once again, he's a great follow. So once again, if you have any college football questions, hit Art up at ArtDice21 on Twitter. Arthur, on the way out, let us know what's going on at the Superbook in the Westgate in Las Vegas.
Absolutely, gentlemen. Listen, always a pleasure to be here. My favorite part of Wednesdays is coming on this show, so it's always a pleasure. Yeah, we got a lot of exciting stuff at the Westgate. Something I touched on last week, Thursdays at the Westgate, we offer a reduced juice, -105. You come in, it's only sides, no totals, but you get NFL and college. You save a little bit. You don't pay the -110. You pay the -105. That usually comes out midday, 2, 3 o'clock on Thursdays till the end of the day on Thursday, which is 11 o'clock. So come in, get that reduced juice. And then, we got a great promo with our app. Sign up right now through the end of the year. Bet 100, get 100. If you need any details, come in, talk to me, ask for me, by name. I will help you, get set up. Anything you need, help you with the reduced juice seats, help you get set up with the, app. So just always come in, ask for me. I'm always there to, lend a helping hand.
It's awesome, and that reduced juice is a huge value, people. If you're in the Las Vegas area, I highly recommend you take advantage of that at the Las Vegas Superbook. Art DiCesare. Thank you, Art. ArtDice21 on Twitter. Every Wednesday right here on Wager Talk Today on Wager Talk TV. And as I mentioned, Teddy, if you missed the shows, they're archived 24/7. Your opening line report is up right now from this past Monday. Fantastic NFL information for every game. My college football top 25 preview will be this Friday. I'll have my Fade the Public NFL video this Saturday, as always, right here on Wager Talk TV. And don't forget, if you want to keep seeing this great content for free, we ask a small favor. You hit subscribe. If you want to get instant alerts when our videos are posted, you hit the bell. Give it a thumbs up, a like, and most importantly, give us a comment below. We love our comments. We read each and every one of them and reply back. So once again, like, subscribe, comment below. Thank you to Arthur for joining us, Arthur DiCesare of the Westgate Superbook. Adam Trigger, also Kevin Dolan, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, most of all, thank you for letting me fill in here the past few days here on Wager Talk Today. Take us home, my man.
Sure, and you may be back tomorrow. We'll see if Prez actually makes it back from the U.S. To Canada. That's still iffy. And I want to say one last thing is that Art DiCesare, when he's like, hey, just come ask for me if you have a question, or that's Art DiCesare, okay? He's as the nicest guy in the business, super helpful to everyone. I encourage you, if you go to the Westgate, give him a hi, give him a tap and say hi. He's every bit as nice.
Tell him you saw him on Wager Talk TV, right, Teddy? Tell him you saw him on Wager Talk TV as well.
Exactly. And that's going to wrap it for the Wednesday edition of Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Noon for you back east, 9 a.m. here on the left coast. Between now and then, enjoy the game and good luck.
Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to wt.buzz/MGM for more details and find out if you're eligible for this amazing offer.